I think it is the Balakot moment for the Pentagon, and the fact is, like I said, it's the changing nature of this conflict. It is a very special military operation of the kind that we've not seen the United States getting into, and for which it actually needs to tell its allies, it needs to tell domestic constituents that look, we carried out this fantastic strike and President Trump did all of this. So narratives, you're building a narrative, and I think that Pentagon briefing was very important. It was a very key part of building that narrative.
Even the first briefing, if you see,
Yeah.
they have given out, like, from where did these aircraft took off,
Right.
which route did they take.
But Hexas for a change did a good job. It was unprecedented. America entering the fray when it comes to the Iran-Israel conflict, but going in and hitting 3 critical nuclear facilities of Iran. But then came source-based information and stories of whether if there was damage to the facility or not. And then the damage control itself in the United States of America and Washington DC in Pentagon. It almost seems like it is America's Balakot moment. What happened was massive briefing. 2 very important journalists are going to break that down for us. Sandeep Unnithan, who's been a regular on India Today Global, our deputy editor, Pranay Upadhyaya. Pranay, let's begin with you. We were just talking a while ago about how Iran has, the Iranian supreme leader has come out and made a statement, making it very clear that there was no damage. But this is now a war of optics, of narratives, as has been the case between India and Pakistan.
You're absolutely right, Geeta. But Iran is also trying to sell the notion of victory. They have to convince. The pressure is more on Iran. They have to convince their own people that they managed to save the national interest of Iran. But if you see the amount of ammunition that went in, nuclear facility by structure itself, these centrifuges are very vibration sensitive devices. So such an impact, around 2 lakh kilogram of ordnance has gone in. So you can't expect that facility to remain intact. That is given. We do not know that how much of enriched uranium was there in that further facility. We do not know that have they managed to get out of that facility any amount of uranium or not. But certainly that facility has gone for long. For the facility, if you see Natanz facility, the Arak facility, the Isfahan facility, they have suffered considerable damage. So what Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is trying to sell, he's trying to sell that notion that we have defeated Americans. See the language of US president, what kind of the guy who was talking about the complete and unconditional surrender is now ready to talk to Iranians. So this is our victory. We have hit the Udeid base in Qatar. No one has managed to hit Americans in their bases, and we are the one, and not once, we did it twice. We did it in 2020, we did it in 2025. So this is they are trying to sell that notion that we are victorious. But materially, I think the Sandeep would add on that the kind of briefing which Pentagon did today. They listed out all the details, like the military hardware, military technical details about what went in, how did they manage, and I think I'm getting the goosebump, Sandeep, that they managed to monitor that Fordo facility for 15 years.
15 years, right.
We'll come to that because that's a fantastic story, and we'll have a separate one on India Today Global just on these 2 men, and you'll be talking about that. But before that, in terms of damage, in terms of the briefing, it was fantastic for Pete Hegseth to be able to deliver on such an important briefing. And I say this because it is again narrative, Sandeep. We're talking about America now trying to convince the country and the world that they did manage to damage the facilities.
And Geeta, here's where I think the similarities with Operation Sindoor and Rising Lion and of course Midnight Hammer is that the fact is that we've always been used to seeing warfare in about 5 dimensions. Land, sea, air, space, and cyber. And now you have a 6th dimension of conflict, which is narratives. And this is something that you've seen in India, in the India-Pakistan context, and also in the US, Israel, Iran context. Now, The United States. See, the primary reason is that because these conflicts are not regular wars, right? In regular wars, in conventional conflicts, victory and defeat is very easily defined. 2003, the United States and the coalition, they invade Iraq. They defeat Saddam Hussein's army. Saddam Hussein flees. The US installs the government of their choice. Saddam Hussein is defeated, right? And he's captured, and in 2006 he's executed, and his pistol is presented to George Bush, who's the conqueror and stuff. So victory and defeat are very clearly defined in such conflicts. But in conflicts that are other than war conflicts, like Operation Sindoor, which is, if I could borrow
surgical.
Vladimir Putin said, which is special military operations. So these are
that's
surgical strikes, special military operations other than war, OOTW.
And Sandeep, I think Geeta was right to equate it with the Balakot, because Balakot, everyone was asking about the evidences. What did you achieve?
How many terrorists did you kill?
Which camp?
Here is something about Balakot, I must say, that I am not so concerned about how many terrorists were killed. How many died? Did the bombs?
The symbolism of it that you went in.
See, it was not about striking the terror camp. It is for the first time since 1971 that we have shown resolve. The politicians have said we are not going to be blackmailed by Pakistan. No nuclear blackmail will work. We will strike your terrorist camps, even if they are in mainland
and that
Pakistan.
to be, if you see the geolocation of Balakot, where Balakot it's just Khyber Pakhtunkhwa.
It is so mainland Pakistan.
Mainland Pakistan.
Exactly like what happened in Sindoor. Right?
Yes.
You went into Pakistan's Punjab province, where you had all of the Jaish, you had Lashkar. They're openly, living there. They have their recruitment centers, their training centers, because they were so confident that India will never strike.
But in last 3-4 years, the kind of military conflicts and the various dimension of these military conflicts, the usage of weaponry, it's really amazing.
You think COVID triggered that? It's like, because it did something to our psyche.
Maybe it's COVID, or maybe the fragile global systems of the global governance.
Yeah.
World could see that, how these systems of which were in place for many decades, post Second World War, global order
of the United States under Joe Biden.
He's a conspiracy theorist, and he's being rather what do you say?
Dishing out my theories.
Dishing. But coming back to the briefing, Sandeep and Pranay, break down the briefing itself, because this is quite a fantastic briefing, so to say. They had the videos, they had the explainer, they were saying exactly what they did, but did it really happen on the ground? And how did it happen if it did happen?
Pranay should do this. I mean, Pranay has done some great illustrations. I mean, just look at these illustrations. I mean, this is so cool. He's just
so they showed it. So there are two aspects of it. What Iranians were trying to sell, that they hit Al Udeid base. So Pete Hegseth, along with General Dan Kane, they explained that how did they save Al Udeid base. So what did they explain? They said that they had a prior information. On Monday morning, they had this information that Iranians are going to hit. So they went for the minimum force posture, and they reduced the military presence on an Al Udeid base, which has large number of troops, thousands of
soldiers,
troops. So they reduced it to only 44 soldiers, manning the entire base. And the senior most guy was of a captain rank, and that to be of 28-year-old, and the youngest one was 21-year-old private.
Imagine.
And they were manning the command center of that Al Udeid base. More so, they had Patriot batteries, and they got only 2 seconds to respond. Either you save your base, or you are, you're done. You get the impact of Iranian incoming missiles. And General Kane, the way he explained that,
First on Monday. As the President has stated, on Monday morning we began to receive indications and warnings that Iran intended to attack U.S. bases in the region. That morning, building on the work that CENTCOM Commander Eric Kurilla had done, and on the orders of the President, Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar and around the region, we assumed a minimum force posture. Most folks had moved off the base to extend the security perimeter out away from what we assessed might be a target zone, except for a very few Army soldiers at Al Udeid. At that point, only 2 Patriot batteries remained on base, roughly 44 American soldiers responsible for defending the entire base, to include CENTCOM's forward headquarters in the Middle East, an entire air base, and all the U.S. forces there.
The call time was very short, and for good time, good duration, at the time those salvos were coming, and the raining of Iranian missiles, they were taking on the longest operation of Patriot missiles were carried out during that Udeid safeguard mission.
Interesting.
So the longest duration in which the Patriot missiles were fired, this was the operation, along with the American Patriot batteries and the Qatari Patriot batteries, and this was the thing which they have carried out.
But there was prior information.
There was. Iran
The
was
bases
let
were
them
moved
know.
out.
Yes.
Sounds
So
like
they
a
have-
redux of 2020
Yeah.
after
So
Soleimani
this is how they countered the Iranian narrative. Now coming back to the point where what did they achieve? Because so he explained that, and Sandeep, I want you to reflect on this. He said that the report which is in circulation,
The DIA report, which the CNN and,
Explain it to our viewers
New York
because they
Times.
really don't
Yeah.
know what you're talking
So the DIA report, he said that it is like a linchpin assessment,
Right.
the initial report, and
Right.
that is also a part of a process, a restrike assessment.
Hmm.
The Pentagon assess the situation that do we need to restrike that location
Yeah.
again or not.
Right.
So that kind of assessment, it was a
so for our
primary.
viewers, we should let our viewers know what
Yes,
the DIA
please.
report is.
Please.
So the DIA report is Defense Intelligence Agency, which prepared an assessment which was widely reported. It was
Oh, it's
few
not
pages.
diversity, inclusiveness, and equality.
It is not. It is Defense Intelligence Agency.
Agency, yeah.
And it's
We also
headed
have a
by-
DIA.
Yes, we
Yeah.
do.
We do
Yes, we
also.
do. And the DIA said that the initial US strikes had not caused the kind of damage the United States had intended for the enrichment facilities in Iran, and it had taken it down only by a few months and not completely destroyed
Destruction.
it, annihilated or obliteration.
Obliteration.
None of those words are used. So the DIA was pretty circumspect in their bomb damage assessment. So bomb damage assessment is the most critical part of any such strike. It was for us in Balakot, after Balakot, it was for us after Sindhu, and incidentally those bases guys have still not been repaired. The runways are still scarred.
Yes.
They've just put some tarps over the shattered hangars, but the point is that bomb damage assessment was very clear here, and the DIA seems to suggest that the kind of damage that was inflicted was not as heavy as the United States had intended it to be. And this also, Geeta, fits into what Seymour Hersh, the investigative
Yes.
journalist, broke yesterday. He had a story, and Hersh is one of the topmost investigative journalists in the world, right? My Lai and Abu Ghraib
Yes,
stories were
yes.
broken by him. He broke the story of the strikes, the Midnight Hammer strikes, by 48 hours before they actually took place. So Hersh,
And he was not on any signal group.
he wasn't on, certainly not on any signal group, not that we know of. But Hersh says, very interesting, that the plan all along over the last couple of years, and incidentally, the planning for this began under the President Biden administration. Biden's administration, it was joint Israeli-US planning on how to take out Fordo and these very deeply entrenched facilities. Fordo was, of course, the monster, 90 meters deep. And Hersh says that the plan was not to destroy it because it was so deep. The plan was actually to bury the whole facility under a lot of rock and block the entrances, block
Making
the
it inoperable.
operational site,
Inaccessible.
Bury the thing under a mountain of rock, and the Iranians wouldn't get to your centrifuges if at all they are still functional, as Pranay says very correctly, that they are very sensitive to vibrations and shock and pressure and all that, and all that enriched material, the uranium, the only uranium that Iran is enriched to about 60% is actually in Fordo, so it's beyond the reach of the Iranians. So I think the whole US narrative today was to say, hey guys, look, we dropped such a lot of ordnance on Fordo, there's no way that thing could have survived. And now the problem is,
Now explain whether if it actually did or not, because
We
the
really don't
entire
know.
assessment, but the entire assessment of depth and where they're placed. Is it foresight of the Iranians knowing what bunker busters can do and where they should, how deep their facility should be?
there is no reason for Fordo to be as deep underground as
90
meters. Who
Meter.
builds a nuclear
Facilities,
facility
yeah.
90 meters below
Yes.
the ground? I mean, 90 meters is like a lot. It is deep. It is like, a mining shaft. And around that time, that is when the US started to develop this massive
Bunkbusters.
ordnance penetrator,
Penetrator,
MOP, which is something it's a 14-ton explosive. 14 tons is the weight of 3 MiG-21 aircraft.
Oh
That's
my
how
God.
heavy it is.
Oh my
It's
God.
21
like
fighter
20
jets.
feet long.
It
It's
is
the length of it.
6 meters.
Yeah,
it's
if-
mad.
Oh my
yeah, it's like a
God.
height of
It's- yeah.
the bomb.
The bomb, 80% of
So
the
the
bomb.
B2s carried this.
Yeah,
The B2s carry two of
Two
them.
of
They're
them.
the only
Oh
platform that
my
can carry the mobs. It is 80% of the bomb is the casing.
steel.
It's actually
It's
a
a
steel
steel-
alloy.
steel
It's
alloy.
got a lot of boron and
Yes.
couple
For
of other
strength, for
things
strength.
for strength, and the
So
whole
it
thing
can
it
penetrate.
Penetration.
goes straight down in, and then it's got these fins
Fins.
that deploy
Yeah.
over there, takes it over there. The explosive content is just about 2.5 tons. Just 2.5 tons. It's a very
The rest is the
passive.
body.
Yeah, it's the casing. It's a solid casing that just goes through like a spear into the ground, and goes all the way down to about 60 meters. And here's the problem. Fordo is 90 meters deep. The mob is meant to go through only about
60.
60 meters. So there was
30
this
meters.
30
that's-
meter unexplained gap. And I always wonder, how is the US going to go down that, well, not the last mile, but the last 30 meters? How are they going to manage that? So it seems, according to Hirsch, that the assessment was that we couldn't go down that deep, but we will just create this mountain
So
of
much
rubble.
of destruction.
So much of rubble that the Iranians won't be able to drill down to that thing.
But I think Sandeep, I think Pete Hegseth and
So just
and both
bury the
Yeah.
bury
Dankesh-
bury
the
the
facility.
General Cain also explained this thing, that they have changed, like they did some tweaks in every bomb they used.
Yes.
So like 6 bombs were used, and
This
that
is
was like
Hegseth.
6 strikes.
Yeah.
Who explained this? General Cain.
General Cain
Okay.
explained
Cain
it.
explained,
So the 6th bomb, what I could read from I took the notes here, and he said that the 6th bomb had the weapon number 6 designed as a flex weapon.
Yeah.
So which means it was designed in a way that it creates the maximum destruction and in that facility. So what Sandeep
And
is trying to explain,
horizontally.
exactly.
Yeah.
So flex weapon. So it's like flexing there and creating like more impact. So this is how they have designed. They tweaked it, like the fin movement, because these are the smart bombs. They have the GPS. They have their own navigation system. You can actually control the impact.
Yeah.
And they follow each other. So it's like one bomb goes in, then the second bomb follows the same path,
Same trajectory.
same trajectory.
But did it?
Yeah.
Did it?
It's
Did
like
two
3
go together?
Well,
Because there were 3.
that's what they seem to suggest. There were about 6 holes
Yes,
in
6
the
holes.
facility. Yeah.
There are 6 holes,
There are
and they I think they dropped
Used
12
14,
bombs.
12. Okay.
12 bombs.
14, 12 on one,
12 on
two
one and 2 on Natanz. So 3 holes.
Yeah.
So like you can make out. So how many ammunition they have pumped into that facility, and also they were trying to explain that Iranians were try to play smart. So they actually targeted a shaft.
Yeah.
So they had
ventilation
shaft.
Yeah.
So that facility had 3 ventilation shafts. So the main central shaft, they targeted it. Iranians tried to cover that shaft with a concrete.
Okay. Oh, so they
Okay.
knew, but they knew
So
about
they knew.
it. But
So
they
they
knew
knew.
about
It was a
Look,
vulnerability.
everyone
Yes,
knew.
in the briefing,
It's
they said
exterior, yeah.
exactly what they were going to do with the,
Yeah.
with the
everyone
camps.
knew. Even Iranians knew that day when Iranian ambassador was talking, the deputy ambassador, when he did a briefing prior to these strikes, he also said the same thing, that Israel alone can't do. They need Americans, and to hit Fordo, they need to have hit Fordo, and for that they need Americans. So Americans have to come if they really want to achieve this thing, and which happened. So to decimate, to destroy this concrete layer, they used like more steel, the precision strike to break
So
that, and then pump.
It was made for Fordo.
It was.
Made for Fordo. You are absolutely right. It was made for Fordo.
Custom
and not
built
only-
for Fordo.
Custom built for Fordo.
15 years back.
15 years back. They
When the
developed,
Okay.
planning
now,
and also Geeta, they rehearsed it. The kind of video clip they showed.
exactly, I was coming to that.
So they
video clip-
rehearsed it.
The video clip is fantastic.
That was
They
not
showed-
simulation.
No.
They actually created
They
that.
did it.
They did it.
They did it.
In some some weapon facility like Air Force Weapons School
Yeah.
in Nevada. So they exercised it, they rehearsed it, they tweaked it.
Keep it going for a minute. You'll see inside the mission space. Unlike a normal surface bomb, you won't see an impact crater because they're designed to deeply bury and then function. I know there's been a lot of questions about that. All 6 weapons at each vent at Fordo went exactly where they were intended to go. A bomb has 3 effects that causes damage: blast, fragmentation, and overpressure. In this case, the primary kill mechanism in the mission space was a mix of overpressure and blast ripping through the open tunnels and destroying critical hardware. The majority of the damage we assessed based on our extensive modeling was a blast layer combined with the impulse extending from the shock. Imagine what this looks like 6 times over.
But the Americans plan for everything, Pranay. They plan for the Armageddon, the aftermath, the end
What
of
was
the
the
world.
Top Gear reference?
Top Gun.
Top Gun.
Top Gun reference.
Top Gun.
He said, well, the men and women who planned this live on Nellis Air Force Base, which is in Arizona, very far from the sea. And there is no beach volleyball there.
Yes.
It's a slight dig to, at
To Top Gun.
Top Gun,
and
yes.
Because you had beach volleyball in both Top
Yes.
Gun 1 and Top Gun 2. And the plot of Top Gun 2, very interestingly, is Tom Cruise and his flying gallant men flying into and hitting a facility very similar to Fordo.
Ranked from captain to colonel, and most were graduates of the Air Force Weapons School headquartered at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. I will state for the record that there is no beach volleyball or football at the Air Force Weapons School.
Similar to Fordo.
And it's dangerously coming out of
and stealing an F-14 and coming back. And
Even if you see the movie Peacemaker.
No, but this is
George Clooney's Peacemaker.
But this
It
is
also
the
had
army
similar-
riles.
Yeah.
This is
the
tell
US
me
Air
what the
Force.
dig is.
Yeah, well, the dig is that, the US, I asked this.
Yeah, the Air Force riled with the Navy.
The US Air Force is extremely riled that despite all the flying they do and all the planes that they have,
Navy gets
the
the credit.
US Navy gets all the credit because
Yes.
of Top Gun and Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. Because they take off from the aircraft carriers, and that's
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Those
I
two movies.
loved it.
But-
And you're thinking, what just happened?
But
Yeah.
In a very serious
just
briefing,
imagine
he
this.
dropped it.
Yeah.
And we were like, what just happened?
what just happened? Exactly.
that is like a soldier's thing.
They
Like,
still are,
yeah.
Guys, it was 40 years ago.
Yes.
You had these 2 movies that came in. The Officer and the Gentleman, Richard Gere,
Yes.
naval pilot,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And 3 years later,
Yeah.
Tom Cruise, naval pilot.
Naval
Yes.
pilot.
The 2
Yes.
coolest dudes
Yes.
from
Yeah.
the 80s.
Yes.
The US Air Force has still not gotten over it.
Yeah.
It should have been US.
Why could it not have been the
Yeah.
Air Force if they're
Right.
pilots?
and pilot number 3 would be Arnold Schwarzenegger in a Marine Corps Harrier.
But this story itself is also
Yeah.
interesting. I want you to reflect on this thing, the US training and all. This DETRA, 2 officers of
Yes,
DETRA,
please.
Defense Threat
Please. Oh my
Reduction
God,
Agency.
what a story.
Right.
So,
Right.
do we have any such thing in our system? Defense Threat Reduction Agency.
We don't.
No, but first explain, because
Like-
again, our viewers will have to be explained what you are talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Both
So
of
you explain this DETRA facility, a designation of 2 officers, 1 officer initially designated
Yeah.
to monitor this Fordo facility for 15 years, and then later he was joined by another officer
My God,
in a
it's a
very
goosebump
small
moment.
team. It's a very closed ring
Yeah.
to maintain that secrecy, and also to monitor and that's why I want you to explain this thing. How does it work? That 24/7 every day these guys were only monitoring Fordo.
And also
That's
to
it.
sustain the 2
They-
people.
Yeah. So
The assets that they come
Yeah.
every day,
Yeah.
they sit and they're monitoring Fordo.
But what do
So we have something
Yeah.
on a smaller scale, Pranay. We
Hmm.
have the Defense Intelligence
Yes,
Agency,
DIA.
India's DIA,
Yeah.
which also has DIPAC, which is the Defense Image processing. I forget the last two, but it's basically an agency that studies a lot of satellite
imagery. Huh?
Right. So they do the satellite imagery processing for all services.
Even our military intelligence is doing to monitor the satellite imagery.
So what they do is, so you will have gentlemen who spend their entire lives studying, say, Sargodha. You know, how
just
Sargodha.
Just Sargodha.
So there's someone who would study Sargodha for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and will know everything about it. Will know where the entrances to the tunnels are.
Yes.
I'm not revealing classified information here, but they know everything. Every tower, every structure, every ventilation shaft that's done, they study it very carefully because all of this information goes into the Indian Air Force's targeting folder. The targeting folder is not a folder, but it all goes into their library of targets that if you are supposed to say what happened in Ops Sindoor is stuff that came out of the operation, the targeting folder. They say that if you want to destroy, say, 10 bases, you just have to press the buttons because the coordinates are already known. Airfields can't move around, right? They're all fixed. So you know that there is a certain grid reference for an intersection of two runways, where if you drop a BrahMos at that intersection, that airfield is useless. So all of this is known, right? So you will have these image specialists who will study all these images, and they're really good. So they will have these fights.
We saw in Operation Sindoor the kind of precision we achieved. It's like around 200 meters. You knocked out a hangar, you knocked out a tarmac, you knocked out a radar. And taking out a radar from a distance, like without crossing IB or LOC, that is amazing. Really amazing.
That's a reflection of the times that we live in. You can't hide. Everything is.
But
you have
the
a bird's eye
briefing
view
very
of everything.
specifically talked about these two men. 15 years.
Yes, 15
Which
years.
means which presidency? Obama?
Probably Obama.
Obama's
And
second.
10.
So why then?
Well, see, Fordo is a facility that Iran started building after the fall of
underground.
Saddam. No, the facility began somewhere in 2003. Pranay, correct me if I'm wrong. 2003, 4.
Around same time.
After the fall of Saddam Hussein, when they said, "Listen, we need to get the bomb, and we need to create a special facility for that." So they chose this area south of Tehran. It's about 150 kilometers south of Tehran. And just north of
and they had a reference of
province.
how Israelis have taken out the Iraqi
all the
facility.
other then
in the region.
Yes,
so
Syrian facility 2007.
Osira, the Syrian facility,
all
of that. So when the Syrian facility, my hunch is that when the Syrian facility was knocked
December
out
2007.
They went from overground to underground.
They started going deeper and deeper and deeper, and then lo and behold, a couple of years back, Fordo vanished from public sight. And it was a very deeply entrenched base. And so there you had the Americans saying, hey, listen, the Iranian facilities are going deeper and deeper, and we need to be able to strike them, which is when that 2-member team would have come in, and they've just spent their life studying the facilities.
And General Kane explained, their job was to monitor every truck which goes to that facility, what is coming out, measuring the quantity and size of that, what is coming out, what is going in. So you have that measurement.
That's what all Indian guys do. Actually, all the time.
He was also quite theatrical about it and really playing the bites through and through. Where he's actually saying that they were dreaming about this moment for these many years. Every night they'd go to sleep thinking about
protecting their identity. But he did say that those officers came to us, and what did they say? They said that it's like we never thought that we would be able to see this day when US would go and B2 stealth bomber were going to.
I never thought I'd see the day, Pranay, when we'd hammer Pakistani.
I know.
Yes, absolutely.
I agree. Coming back to our country, never been. It's a shift.
And especially
as
those
is
of us
with the
who
United
have
States of
seen
America, this is a
that
huge
with
shift.
Iran.
That Kargil dilemma, from that Kargil dilemma that you're not going to cross LOC, from that thing to this point. This is amazing transition.
It is a huge thing. I think it's one of the biggest strategic steps that we've taken post Pokhran 2, which was 1998, the nuclear test.
But do you think strategically countries have started aligning their interests differently and have started shifting goalposts from what the previous administrations and how they were thinking?
I think you're right.
Trump has done the same thing.
They're moving away from status quo.
Yes.
So if you look at it, the Iranian nuclear program is 20 years old, 25, more than that. 3 decades.
And we are
old at
seeing more
least.
kinetic action.
Yeah. So now every American president has had the option to strike Iran on his table, but has not done so.
Yes.
George Bush has had that option. Obama had that option. Biden certainly had that option because they were advanced
Trump
planning
had-
for it began.
Trump
in the first term had it.
first term had it,
Yeah.
and he said it on record
Yeah.
that Pentagon gave me plans, but I am not going for it.
Yeah, because there was no war at that time.
Yeah,
But
But
do
he
you
doesn't
think it's
want
an
to be the guy
overreach?
who's-
Do you think it's an overreach?
I think it's
Or strategic?
uh,
Or did he get played by Bibi and the deep state?
Seen from his perspective, it's a big win for Trump because he's this guy who can say that, look, I didn't start this war.
Yes.
This happened under the watch of sleepy
Yes.
Joe Biden. And now that the war is on for almost 20 months, I stepped in, I bombed the hell out of Iran, and I got them to get, to the peace
this is what he
process.
said. He said that I
And
ended
it's a
this
quick
war.
in and
He
out.
you've actually repeated his soundbite.
Yeah, so it's exactly like that. Yeah, that's what he said.
He kind of equated it with Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which
Yeah.
ended the.
Well, yeah,
no,
I mean, that's
look,
Trump
that
being
was,
Trump.
Yeah, Trump being Trump.
Yeah.
But actually, the US action.
Yeah.
He tried mentioning it. I do not want to equate it, but yes, that bombing stopped the World War II. This bombing stopped the Iran.
Yeah, and I
Israel
saw
war.
this coming.
But do you think
I-
so?
like-
You think it was right, or did he get played?
Uh,
Or was it an overreach? What do you think?
But I think they needed a point for turn. Like, you need a closure. You need something that makes you give you that sense of achievement, that this is what we
Yeah.
have achieved, and that there has to be a point of return. So I think that bombing, even for Israel, that you have hit the further facility. You're not going to bomb entire
They've crippled
Iran.
their nuclear facilities.
You're not going to end,
Yeah.
or you can't make a country of 90 million people to succumb by merely bombing.
From
Like,
the air. There's no regime change from the
There
air.
is no regime change.
There's no regime change.
Yeah.
They
Regime
realize
change.
that. There's a
And like
realization too.
strategic bombing is not the most viable idea to go for regime change. The Americans or the Allied forces did it in Second World War. For 2 months they bombed Berlin. But
But,
regime
I
change,
think,
in
but I
Japan,
think
yeah.
after this was a realization. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm of a different thought process itself. Because I know that you both would say that it was a major win for Trump, but I think that maybe he did get played. That he did give in to what Netanyahu thought or believed is the only way out.
Maybe he's willing to
And
become party
the
to
deep
it.
state. Yes, but then when Udeid happened, even after the information that was given, the statements that came out after that certainly felt like there's a realization that America is vulnerable in the region, that they have bases, and that not all countries have iron domes. And Iran is not a country
With
since
Geeta, for a
since
country
the fall
like
of the
United
Shahs.
States, who is the net security provider for the region and who has the largest
Pranay,
industrial
Iran-
complex,
but Pranay-
who's going to get benefited if the West Asian states start buying more weapon and more
Yeah,
iron
that's
dome?
right. That's a very important point.
No,
Yeah.
that is true, but that's
So,
always been the
Fear
case.
fuels.
But that's
the arms
always
race.
been the case,
Yes,
right?
but during his previous
Hosting
regime,
a
previous
base,
administration,
hosting a base and acquiring are two different things. Hosting American bases make them vulnerable. In
yeah,
a
they have
way
40,000 troops, and this
Yeah.
has been their concern.
And I again, this is a sense. I think that the Middle East did step in. That West Asian countries.
Oh yeah, no doubt
did
about it.
step in.
Saudis
and-
played an important
and
role.
messaged Washington DC that if a single shrapnel, and this is my language,
Yeah.
falls on our soil, you've had it.
Yeah, if it
because
hurts civilians, our
nobody
civilians.
wants even the soil. Nobody wanted this Iran
Even
Israel
for
war.
expand.
Because if they wanted it,
Hmm.
then Saudi Arabia would have fought the Gaza war and not the Shia Iran
Yeah.
regime. If they really wanted to, then Qatar, the UAE and Saudi Arabia would have done Israel in long ago. The fact that they didn't do it is because they did not want a war on their
I
soil.
don't quite agree with that, Geeta, but because the Arab countries have had their shot and they've failed. Every time they've tried to
Yeah, Arab-Israel
physically
war.
annihilate
Yeah.
Israel, they failed. 1948, all the Arab countries come together, they can't defeat Israel.
But that was a
67,
different.
yes.
But that was
73,
different, and today
Three
it's
wars.
different. They're strategic partners of the United States of America. Why do you think they weighed in?
So they
Why do you
want,
think they managed to get into the Trump camp and influence him with his anti-war base? the Trump base is anti-war. Sandeep. They are not look at Tucker Carlson, look at Marjorie Taylor.
We are actually
the Trump base is anti.
Most of them are.
Non-China war. They want they want the United States to focus only on China.
But that's because of money.
Yeah.
Because the Trump base, which is anti-war, only is thinking that this is not my war.
This is not our war.
Don't waste my money.
We need to fight with a near-peer adversary, which is China.
That's because that's where put your money. That will save us and make us money.
Yes. So that's the thing. And
there's absolute
I think there's going to
clarity
be a huge round of rearmament after this.
Yes.
After all this.
In fact, I actually think this is a strategic pause. I think Israelis are fatigued. Their iron domes are fatigued. They needed this breather. And which is why Trump's statement yesterday where he says that it's perhaps going to start again.
See the subsequent action. NATO has agreed
5%.
5% every country. So Europe after Second World War, this is for the first time they are going for a huge rearmament. See, India-Pakistan conflict has also led. See, our defense spending has gone up. Now we are talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, more like indigenous production. There has to be something. So every
but Europe is looking at American.
Also European.
Also European.
Yeah.
Also European.
Macron is coming in.
Which is what Macron is saying.
German
buy
Rafale.
French jets.
Yes.
Atmanirbhar France.
Atmanirbhar France. Atmanirbhar Germany.
Yeah.
Everyone is talking
so
about.
They're all trying to revive.
They never thought that
fighters,
European military industrial complex has to produce ammunition.
Yeah.
They never thought that they are going to.
We've not done it since the Cold War.
Yeah.
Almost more than 3 decades.
Yes, absolutely. So we are living in a more worried world, and a worried world is going to buy more weapons.
Yeah.
See, when
So
the
it's
three
like
of us, when the three of us sit, the conversation can go on like as though nobody's around and we're having, we're chatting over drinks and dinner. But that can't be the case over here. So, final word from both of you. Was this Pentagon briefing one that was substantive for us to understand exactly what happened on the ground, or is this, I repeat again, the Balakot moment where they're trying to beat narrative with briefings?
Well, I think it is the Balakot moment for the Pentagon, and the fact is, like I said, it's the changing nature of this conflict. It is a very special military operation of the kind that we've not seen the United States getting into, and for which it actually needs to tell its allies, it needs to tell domestic constituents that, look, we carried out this fantastic strike and President Trump did all of this. So narratives, you're building a narrative, and I think that Pentagon briefing was very important. It was a very key part of building that narrative, which is why it came out with so much of information, right? I mean, I haven't seen this kind of a detailed briefing in
even the first briefing, if you see,
Yeah.
they have given out from where did these aircraft took off,
Right.
which route did they take, how much, where
right
did they
down to
bound.
the classified footage of tests of this
Absolutely.
particular GBU-57, why it's so effective and all that, just to beat the narrative where Trump feels that, look, the NYT and CNN and they're
MSNBC,
fake news and they're all against me,
Yeah.
so I need to come
But that
out
is
here
Trump.
and put-
I think that is more to do with the Trump's personal. He puts his personal stake into everything, and he think that everyone is against me, so that's why my narrative should go, and that's why in
So
bit
actually
of that,
you have Hitzit and you have Marco Rubio and all of them,
Yes.
But
playing to
Hexit
his.
for a change did a good job. He was explaining. He came.
He's a TV host.
Well briefed.
Yes, don't forget he's
But
a
former TV host.
He's done a terrible job before that, and I've seen his briefings before. But here he came prepared.
Right.
He came as though he was coming, for
But for the technical
major
for the technical
TV
explanation, he brought
He
They were the chairman joint.
Yeah. Which is the-
Chairman
which is-
Joint Chief of Staff.
Yeah.
He
Which
did
is
that
the
technical
smart
thing.
thing
Yeah,
to
the
do.
smart thing, and obvious thing. You have to leave it. There are certain issues which you have to leave it to, even if you are a former soldier.
Domain
But
Well, he's a colonel, so he got the general.
yes, he got the general. Yeah, he's a colonel. He got the general.
On that note, thank you so much for joining us, Sandeep and Pranay. But this doesn't end here. It's a brilliant conversation we've had. But we also have explainers on how the bunker busters worked. We will be share. We have the entire Pentagon briefing here on India Today Global. Watch it if you want to. You've already seen small parts of it here on this show, and do comment, do subscribe. We've been working extensively on the Israel-Iran conflict. So join our channel, watch our channel to see exactly what's happening. The latest developments you can catch on India Today Global. Thank you for watching.